All right, a big patch just dropped here for Diablo 4, and we're going to go through it here today. Now, this is your first time on my channel. The way I do things here is by upfronting the knowledge within my videos so that you can decide to stick around if you so wish. I'm actually streaming right now, and I'm recording this live, so we're going to kind of stumble our way through all of it. But really, the whole patch can be truncated down to these two sections, and the rest of it outside of it is buffs across the board. If you're playing a class, it just got better. Some classes got substantially better. Some classes just got a little better. Take, for example, the Bone Necromancer. Just got a little bit of a buff here and there. But if you're playing that Tornado Druid or Tornado Werewolf Druid with the helmet and everything like that, you just got a 40% buff to your Hurricane. So it's a substantial buff to you. Now, for your actual just kind of quick rundown here, because this is like basically the spark notes, the most important things of the patch are right here. So significant increase to experience rewards for completing Nightmare Dungeons and for the actual monsters that you get from Nightmare Dungeons. Helltide Chests give you more experience and significantly increased reward experience from completing individual Whispers. Those are some big experience rewards fixed right there. And then general now, you can now just teleport to a Nightmare Dungeon whenever you've selected one. And the weekly bonus cash from world bosses no longer have level requirement for opening. And also Helltide roaming bosses will now more consistently drop higher quality loot. That's really the biggest things of this patch, and if that's the summary you wanted to know, go ahead and feel free to shut the video down if you so wish. But before you do, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Each one of those things does truly help me out in a very huge way. You can find the entire patch notes linked in the description, so maybe if you're at work or you're on a little quick break and you just want to read the notes for yourself, go ahead and click the link below. You can just kind of go through them. But for those that want to stick around and go through the whole entire set of patch notes with me, go ahead and stay here. But don't forget to follow me on Twitch, where I do stuff like this, where Twitch people are in the background watching what I'm doing right this very instant. So let's get started here with the entire patch notes for Diablo 4. Okay, so starting at the top of the patch notes, we have dungeons, events, and other activities. I didn't notice anything stand out here, but if you are encountering any big bugs that you can't push beyond certain dungeons, or there's certain things that are kind of haranguing you, go ahead and go through this list. I unfortunately don't know of any big ones. Gameplay fixes, and if this is again your first time watching any of my patch note videos, the way I do this is I highlight in green any positive or good patch note. Anything in cyan is just like a meh, and then anything in red is a debuff, a negative thing, something I just generally don't like. Fix an issue where corpse tendrils would cause the corpse visual to disappear. Fix an issue where barbarian players would get stuck between bone walls after using charge. Fun stuff like that. Then fix an issue where the skeleton warrior upgrade for increasing thorns damage was not properly applying. That's very nice here. There's some other things here that I maybe don't have a really good concept of how important they are. Like take this one for example. Fix an issue where the burning instinct power on the Sorcerer Paragon board did not account for the base critical damage in its damage calculation. So I don't know if that's actually a particularly poignant patch note. So if it applies to you, please do kind of give these a once over. Local and co-op, I don't have a system. I have a PC, like a true born. Quests fixed an issue where the player character would get blocked if they sat on a chair to talk to an NPC during the Demon Ledger quest. It's a meh. I just know that I just have gotten so frustrated with chairs in this game for no reason. For the UI, fixed an issue where a party member's HP bar would appear to be 0 if they left the vicinity of their party while not at full health. So that has been fixed. And a lot of other little things here, mainly kind of stuff kind of bleeding over menus or opacity issues and stuff like that, or fix an issue where the socket button would persist as the player swapped tabs. Little kind of things like this have been fixed. Fix multiple issues with health bars not displaying accurately during PvP activities. This is actually pretty huge because what I was noticing is when I would do PvP, I would just be dumpstering someone, but their health wouldn't be moving, or I wouldn't be dumpstering someone and their health would be nothing. So I'd be like, oh, what the hell's going on? So nice to see how that has been changed. Various other improvements to the UI experience, stuff like that, always nice to see. A bunch of miscellaneous stuff, again, things that I didn't really see if they were huge, like fix an issue where the player character's eyes would display improperly during the Loras cabin cutscene in the prologue. I guess that's an issue, I didn't even know it. For gameplay adjustments, we went through this before, but just for the sake of continuity here, significantly increased the experience awarded for completing Nightmare Dungeons as well as gained from killing monsters in Nightmare Dungeons. They said they wanted to make Nightmare Dungeons a much more rewarding and smoother process, and these two things go towards the rewarding portion, and then the smoother process comes from whenever you activate a Nightmare Dungeon, you can now just directly teleport through the map. Held Tide chests now provide substantially more bonus experience when opened, and significantly increased reward experience from completing individual whispers across the board. I've always kind of liked whispers, and if I'm leveling up a new character, because it's just kind of a nice way to get a quick little experience bump. It gives you a bit of a direction when you're playing a brand new character, and on top of it, you get some items. So it's nice to actually have a little bit more experience behind that now. Held Tide roaming bosses will now more consistently drop higher quality loot, because before they were just absolutely garbage. And your weekly bonus caches for world bosses no longer have a level requirement for opening. So let's take a look here. I'm going to jump back into the game, press this button. I'm going to press this button. These are all of my old caches, and they are now open. It used to say, hey, you need to be level 80. So this is a retroactive fix. It'll turn on and unlock all of your old caches if you have any. So go ahead and jump into them. Or you could be someone that calls them a cache. I don't, because I'm not like that. Developer note, we are currently working on increasing the monster and elite density of endgame content and plan to introduce this change early in Season 1. So I'm stoked to see that, especially if I'm playing like Hell Tides. I'm excited to see Hell Tides become an absolute shit tide. I'm so down with that. I'm really excited for that. For some balance changes here, so this is going to apply to all of the classes. For sake of ease, I'm going to break this into its individual constituent parts as far as each class. But here's the overall scope here, right? In particular, we've seen community feedback stating that basic skills aren't impactful enough in combat. These changes will not change the fundamental relationship between basic and core skills, but we hoped that they help smooth out the leveling experience while we explore additional ways to strengthen them. We are also increasing the power of some skills that players feel are lagging behind their peers. I didn't think Hurricane was on that list. As we look forward to the future updates, we are monitoring other heavily discussed topics such as minion survivability and build parity. Please keep sending us your feedback, and we'll see you in Sanctuary. So, before we start about this, talking to these individual ditties, one thing I kind of want to say here about basic skills is they've done such a marginal increase in basic skills. And I think the problem is that basic skills lose their viability, their functionality in the latter portions of the game. If you're playing a level 50 character, or level 40 character, or level 60 character, this conversation of the basic skills viability doesn't necessarily apply to you. It's still very viable to use your basic skill in that point. But as you push beyond, depending upon your build and depending upon your class, the basic skill kind of starts to lose its overall use. Now, again, this is build and class dependent. If you're playing, say, an Arc Lash Sorcerer, it's in the name. That's the basic skill. It is a pinion of your entire build. I think what we look at basic skills more in the true late game is, what's the utility that skill provides? Does it give me vulnerability? Does it give me the ability to move around the battlefield? How can I use it to really push around or do things? And what they've done here is small, like 2-3% damage increases. And what you have to think about when you look at a basic skill is all the skills in this game do a percentage of your base weapon damage. So if your base weapon damage is, let's just say 100%, and they took something that did 20% and now made it do 22%, well, it still only now does 22 damage versus 20 damage. Of course, percentages scale over large numbers, which is nice, but still my point remains that even if you invested 5 points in your basic skill, which you should never do, you go from having a skill that did 28% damage to now 30% damage. So the buff to the basic skills here is an interesting buff. I don't think it really serves them, because really what it's doing here is increasing a minute amount of damage that really doesn't do much. Very rarely is it increasing the utility of the basic skill, which is what you're going to be using in the long term. That's a huge diatribe. I wanted to go on to talk about that. But let's now break it up into individual classes. Starting with Barbarian, we get a lot of bonuses to Lunging Strike, to Bash, to Frenzy, and to Flay. Each one of them, like I said, not huge. Take, for example, Frenzy, right? Base weapon damage is increased from 20 to 22%. If you invest 5 points, this brings it up to a total of 30. And some of them do get their actual resource generation increased, like Lunging Strike goes up by 1, Bash goes up by 1, my dog's over there chewing on his towel by 1, Flay goes up by 1, all these nice little increases across the board for your basic skills. But take a look at this. Double Swing gets a nice 4% increase to its damage. Kick gets a little bit of a cooldown reduction by 4 seconds, which is really cool. Charge gets some stuff that I don't think anyone ever uses. Leap gets a bonus to its slow here. A lot of the cool things included, but Iron Maelstrom is the biggest winner of the patch, I'd say, when it comes to the Barbarian. The cooldown reduction is done from 60 to 45 seconds, so a whole nice 15-second cheaper Iron Maelstrom. And the bonus crit strike chance is increased by 10 to 30. And then the prime, it goes from crit strike damage from 20 now to 40%. So substantial buffs across the way for Iron Maelstrom, which really works out if you're trying to make an arsenal style barbarian. Now for the legendary aspects. Now across the board, they've done quite a lot of damage increase to the legendary aspects. No legendary aspect got nerfed. They all got buffed. So all of these now have increased flat damage. So as you can see for the dev note, the below includes changes to flat damage legendary aspects. These effects scale with item power. For example, a 820 item power bull Kathos' Earthquake increases from 1747 to 3404 to now 2687 to 3717 damage. So it's quite a substantial increase to all of these. Both of the Earthquake ones got their buff, and then all three of the Dust Devil ones. And I know that one of these is off Fury Generation, one of these is for Double Swing, and one of these is for Whirlwind. So if you're a Whirlwind Barb, you just got a buff to your aspect. It's just now doing more damage for you. Iron Warrior damage reduction increased from 10 to 20% to now 15 to 25%. Very nice. And then 2 sets of damage increases for your items on Overkill and Hellhammer. This is pretty significant from 16 to 34 to now 24 to 38 for Overkill. But those are your Barbarian buffs. And now we have Druid. So Druid, again, same thing, just some nice buff across the board for all of your basic skills. Druid's in a unique place where all the basics for Druid are actually quite good. Earth Spike is something that you use in the Pulverize build, right? You use Maul, then swap it to Earth Spike once you get the corresponding unique. But now Earth Spike's Fierce Earth Spike Fortify has been increased from 4% to now 8%. That just doubled. That's absolutely huge. Very nice for those that are using that build in specific. Windshear got some stuff, who cares? Claw, on the other hand, got a pretty nice buff across the board, 2% damage increase, 1 spirit generation, but its Claw's double attack chance went from 10 to 15, and Fierce Claw, it went from 10 to 15 as well. Maul got a buff, everything gets a buff, Oprah Winfrey gives a buff. Lightning Storm, enhanced Lightning Storm duration increased from 4 to 6 seconds. So what this means is when you're channeling it, you have now 6 seconds to maintain that Lightning Storm before having to recharge it, basically. And also, Primal Lightning Storm's chance to immobilize is increased from 8 to 12%. I would have preferred that this just got doubled. It's already a small amount, and immobilization is a pretty crucial thing for any kind of lightning elemental druid. And right now, it's not overly advantageous to go pure elemental druid. So try to at least give me a little more fluff in that scope, I'd say. Shred. 10% damage bonus on the third base attack. Raging Shred got a massive bonus here from 51 to 71%, and then Primal Shred's bonus crit strike damage, 20 to 30%. Huge. One of the biggest, I almost had the biggest winner. It's not, it's right here. The second biggest winner from the Druid patch notes is Ferocious Wolfpack Lucky Hit chance is increased from 10 to 40%. For those that don't know, the way that this works is when you trigger Lucky Hit on your wolves, they will fortify you for, I think it's 5% of your base health without any modifications from passives, right? So now this is from 10% to 40% chance on Lucky Hit to give you 5% base chance fortified. That's actually quite nice because you have a 50% Lucky Hit chance with your wolves. So that equates to roughly 20% of the time you're going to get that fortify going. It's a very, very nice buff. Whereas before it was only 5% of the time. It's a huge buff. Hurricane, though, base damage increased from 97.5 to 134%. So if you're playing a Hurricane in any way, shape, or form, it just got a buff, and it's sweet. Oprah Winfrey is back online. Cataclysm base damage increased from 52 to 64%, which is great. Rabies got a buff. Lacerate got a buff. Petrify, Pummel all got buffs. Passives, the Bestial Rage one got a 5% attack speed bonus and 10% damage bonus increase, which is just absolutely juicy. Nature's Fury, chance to cast a free spell increased from 20 to 30%. Let's put that in green. That's a good one. That's a good one right there. We'll take that. Lupine Ferocity goes up by 10%, but when it comes to legendary aspects, we get just again, the same damn thing. Seismic shit. This looks, since it says decreased, it's actually a buff because it's occurring more often now. Blurred Beast is the one for, it's for Shred. It's for Shred. That seeks out the poison enemies. It had an increase from 60 to 90 to now 70 to 100%. Just across the board. A lot of really great legendary aspect buffs for your Druid. Moving into Necromancer, my personal favorite, we see the same thing, right? Buffs across the board with all the basics. Nothing really substantial here, right? I think the only real basic that is useful on the Necromancer long-term in the late game is Reap. And it got a little bit of a damage buff by a single %, and Acolyte's Reap cooldown between corpses reduced from 5 to 4 seconds. Nothing substantial across the board for any of these, but as we jump into Bloodlance, Supernatural Bloodlance overpower requirement reduced from 8 to 6 casts. I actually quite like that. Also, Iron Maiden base damage increase was doubled from 10 to 20%, which is cool. Corpse Tendrils chance to spawn a Blood Orb has been increased from 30 to 35% if you were using it for that scope rather than the vulnerable damage one. That's the alternate enhancement to it. Bone Spike's base damage has been increased from 80 to 120%. That is a 40% juicy boof. And here's a really nice one. This isn't a direct buff to minions, right? But it's still something that's very needed. Minions will now always engage targets with a cast curse, which is awesome. So you're basically getting a loose control for your minions. You're always going to be able to push them onto something by casting a curse. And I think it also kind of makes curses compulsory on any minion build. Maybe. For the passives here, we get Rathma's Vigor. So healthy duration requirement reduced from 15 to 12 seconds. This is the key passive for Blood, where basically it says, hey, if you're it increases your base health, and if you're healthy for 15 seconds, you get an auto overpower. Well, this is now 12 seconds. It's a huge, huge buff to any Blood build. Spiked Armor has had a across the board Thorns increase, which is very nice here from 0.816 and 0.24 to now 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Just flat values. Quite nice. Like I said, if you're playing a bone build, Bursting Bones got better. If you're using Flesh Rending for Decompose, it got better. And Fast Blood ultimate cooldown reduction increased from 0.5 to 1 to now 1 to 1.5 seconds. Can be quite good. But for Blood Orbs, you get Blood Orbs and it reduces your ultimate cooldown reduction. But those are your buffs for Necromancer. I think of all the classes, it was the most mild of its buffs. Let's jump into Sorcerer next. I lied to all of you. It's not Sorcerer, it's actually Rogue. So Rogue, the usual buffs that you would imagine. Heartseeker getting a pretty substantial one. Because remember, like I said, this does a percentage of your base damage. And primary Heartseeker before, so if Heartseeker did 24% damage, that's out of 100, that's 24 damage. Before, when it would ricochet, it would only do 30% of 24, like, oh, that's nothing. Now at least it does 75%. It's not amazing, but it's a little bit of a buff into your basic skills. You've got those actions there. Forceful Arrow, Barrage, all that there. Caltrops gets a little bit better, but the other Caltrops is just way better. Smoke Grenade gets a 2-second reduction on its cooldown, and then Rain of Arrows gets a 5-second reduction on cooldown, which seems weird. Prime Rain of Arrows imbuement potency increased from 20 to now 30%. Volley's base damage has gone from 70 to 105%. And then some, actually, you know what? I think that Rogue probably has the least impactful buffs here. Close quarters combat damage increase, though, is 20 to 30%. That's actually very nice. And the cooldown reduction on Escape Artist has been reduced here by a substantial amount. So that is actually very, very nice too. And I like Umbrus. I use that in my build. I'm going to green that one out. What? Green, baby. There we go. Lucky hit chance to gain a Dark Shroud increase from 30 to 50 to now 40 to 60%. Now let's talk about Sorcerer. So for Sorcerer, again, everything got a buff that's a base ability, except for Arc Lash. And I think we all know why. Going down, Incinerate got a pretty substantial buff. At least his base damage increased by 6%. Enhanced Incinerate damage increased from 15 to 25. And greater Immobilize requirement reduced from 4 to 3 seconds, which is lovely. Fireball got a 5 mana cost decrease. And Frozen Orb got some love, a 4% damage increase, a 5% explosion damage increase, and then greater Frozen Orb chance to apply a vulnerable increase from 25 to now 30%. Blizzard gets a base damage increase from 120 to 130, which is really nice. Lightning Spear got a cool little buff. I don't know anyone who uses it, but summoning the Lightning Spear's max damage bonus increase from 100 to 160%. I really want to see a really cool Conjuration Sorcerer, which I don't think we get right now with our available aspects and Paragon and whatnot. But I'd love to see a cool Conjuration-focused Sorcerer. Freezing Wake, base damage increase from 60 to now 110%, which is lovely. For our legendary aspects, we got a lot of cool stuff here, like Singed Extremities, which is really good if you are playing a... oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of this one. Singed Extremity, slow amount increased from 25 to 35% to now 40 to 60. Incendiary is the one if you're playing a firewall build. So anything that's burning has a chance to restore mana, increase from 5 to 10% to now 12 to 17%. So quite nice there, quite nice. Snow Guard is also really good. This is if you're standing inside of your own blizzard. The damage reduction went from 10 to 15% to now 20 to 25%, which is just absolutely awesome if you're playing a blizzard sorcerer of any way, shape, or form. Mana regen from concentration went from 10 to 20 to now 20 to 30. This is if you're not taking damage for 3 seconds, you get that kicking in. But Flame Scar got better, not the most amazing ability because it uses Incinerate, and Staff of Lam Essen got a little bit better as well for damage reduction, reduced from 40 to 30 to now 35 to 25. I think that might be the only nerf in this entire list. But those are your patch notes here for Diablo 4 that just landed. And again, the biggest things are geared towards Nightmare Dungeons. We got tons of buffs across the board for every single class. So go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. How are you feeling about this patch? Do you feel like it wasn't necessarily the balance patch you were expecting and it's mainly the buff patch you weren't expecting? Because that's how I feel. I thought we were going to see a lot of aspects and builds shift around here. And maybe they're going to wait for Season 1's actual launch to kind of have that heavy fulcrum shift. As of now, everything that was strong just got stronger or wasn't touched. It's one or the other. And everything that was weak didn't necessarily get brought up to snuff with everything. They just kind of got a little bit stronger. So again, let me know what you think about this in the patch, in the comment section below about the patch. I've got the link to the patch notes if you need them, but also don't forget to check me out on Twitch where you can watch me sift through patch notes live and witness me recording and all that kind of fun stuff. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.